Okay, so we're recording. I'm recording and panning over to Kristen Necessary and Eric Asboe, who are in Kristen's installation at PS1, February 2012. We're going to talk about the show. Okay, I think we're good.
So how should we start?
Maybe we should start with the artist statement, some kind of artist statement of sorts.
Or just tell us a little bit about the show.
Okay, I guess I can start with the title. The show's called The Construction of Place. And it builds off a lot of my research. I'm really interested in how place and identity work together and influence one another, and how we construct the places around us and then how they come back to influence our identity. And I think a lot about construction, especially because I think that kind of implements people and what they're creating, both in a physical sense and an ideological sense, and just trying to draw attention to that.
Yeah, that's, I was, now that you say that, I want to talk about one of the pieces that isn't in this video. But one of the comments I had at the opening was the piece that's just around the corner, we can show a picture of it, but they really liked the piece, but there was the chairs, like bothered them, like the modern kind of, I think they're those plastic chairs that just, they're like, why did she include those in this? That seems to be kind of
talking about.
I know who you were.
Or who you were talking
Oh,
to.
really? You overheard that?
I think you may have brought it up to me later.
Oh, really? Okay. So, I mean, does that
Yeah.
kind of fit into what you're saying in some way?
Yeah, I think so. It's like I'm so interested in also things that are forgotten or things that are mundane and things that surround us but we don't really think about, or the way people leave objects laying around. I've done quite a bit of work with plastic chairs, actually. You just seem to find them everywhere. And those especially, I like the way they're laying on the roof, and you have the two green and the one red chair. And just such an awkward positioning, and why are they there, you know? And
Yeah, I'm really struck by your use of the word research. And I think John and I are lucky enough to have seen your work for some time now, and I can understand what you mean by that, but it's interesting to have to come to this space and see sort of the top layer or the current layer of product that's coming out of your research. Can you explain a little bit more maybe your process of the research, as well as like how an individual who's coming to this for the first time can understand that?
Yeah, so a lot of my research is based on walking, actually, and just seeing things in my environment. But I also do a lot of academic research, reading things like cultural geography or history and vernacular traditions or researches about vernaculars. And so, I don't know, all of that comes together. And in this show it's a little different because the making of the work in the show was really intuitive, which sometimes can come off as something of, a bad word, like intuition. I mean, and some people take that there's nothing behind that, but I have all this research behind it. And here I was working on that intuition, and because I think sometimes we try so hard to translate things that should be visual into the verbal. And so here I was really just focusing on the visual presentation and following what I wanted to make, and because some things just can't be translated into the verbal. And so I hope a viewer that can come to this show just kind of absorbs it, and that somehow it makes sense to them.
I think one way, when you say absorb, I think about how when you walk into the space, how this gallery differs from Mary's side of the gallery, and I think like the pink, maybe we're even a little pink, I don't know, we only have that as the pink. I don't know if any of the pink of the rest of this room is showing up on our skin or anything, but it does feel like when you walk into the space, at least from that other room, there is a kind of pink glow coming from this side of the space, and
I'm really interested in that glow.
Yeah. I know Mary was talking about it, how she thought a little of it was picking up on hers, and I don't know if she's just speaking of the contrast between the two, where hers is just kind of an opposite color, but also a flattened space, and then this one is a more encompassing. Do you want to talk about that or pink in general?
I don't think I have a lot to say about pink in general.
Okay.
I mean, some artists do. I know they have very specific reasons. I think for me, I focus a lot on the domestic structure, because I think that's where so much of our lives really happens, is in our homes, and where we really show what we're thinking about or what's accumulated and what's going on there. And so for me, it makes sense for the walls to have like some color to create more of an environment.
Yeah, and that was very much the case with the vernacular displacement. Was that the show title that you had out at Porch, where it was very much this kind of homey side. That sounds bad to say it that way, but this environment.
Yeah, and even more so, literally reaching out to the viewer as they're coming into the space to draw them further in.
Okay. I can't say, I think the pink did come from a piece that's not actually in the show. I was intrigued by when people start decorating or designing their houses, and they focus so much on making something match, but they're buying consumer mass-produced products, so they never completely match. So I was looking at this house in this room that they've used so many colors of pink that the whole thing becomes one big mauve room or house, and none of it matches, but it's like 15 shades of mauve in one room. Like when you're trying so hard to match something that it just becomes bizarre.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. Maybe not great to live with.
Yeah.
To watch. I know this show is also coming out of a new type of practice for you. No longer being in school and trying to transition to a home-based studio practice, which is also one of the reasons you've been doing the workshops throughout the month. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I've spent a lot of time in academia, so it was strange to be on my own and to figure out how to make things at home again. And it's I found it a little surprising that when I had the larger studio, I was making smaller work, and now I have a small studio and I started making not very sensical, but and so I've been exploring a lot of different processes, and I spent a lot of time constructing my studio before I could actually work in there, and I think that led a lot to thinking about how we decorate or design our rooms and our homes.
That's really interesting juxtaposition between, what you were just talking about with designing in terms of colors or using mass-produced products, and transitioning that into a completely different sort of function. That's what you would normally find in your home. I think a function that most people would try to exclude from their homes.
The shape that you had in that show out at the Porch Gallery, you had the shape of kind of the that came out of the gallery around the corner. Do you see like some of the shape, like there seems to be a similar, like maybe not similar to that shape, but the idea of a certain shape as a recurring theme or
And the shape that was in the show Vernacular Displacement, it actually has a name in my practice. I call it a threshold.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm moving on from the threshold a little bit, but I definitely will get stuck on a shape, which I think is evident in this show. I think with everything, I like to dwell in ideas, and so I'll get really excited about something and I'll just stay there for a while.
Do you have a name? Do you have a name?
This one
for
doesn't
this
have a name.
Don't have a name yet. Yeah.
But it's taken from the house in this piece, which is a house in town, and I just noticed that shape and was really struck by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple names, but I'm not gonna say them. I don't want to influence. I don't want to influence. Anyway, and they're kind of boring, probably. Anyway, do you? I could pick up the camera and we could just walk around for a little bit and look at some of the other pieces in the show.
Okay.
I might.
Yeah, or at least get some of the pink too.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I could try panning. Should I try panning? We're at 10 minutes. So some of the objects that you have in the show, you kind of touched on them, I think, before. But did you want to say anything specific about these objects, or?
I could say about the shelves and the objects. It's a new idea that happened right before the show went up, but basically I'm starting to think about the idea of storage and display. Yeah, so those were the two words really going through my mind, making that decision.
Mm-hmm. And the mirrors, you have several mirrors in.
Yeah.
I don't want to, like you said, I don't, maybe there's words that we don't even want to try and put on the artwork. And
the mirrors, I don't have a concise verbal explanation for those at the moment.
I'll continue panning. I should have turned off the lights in the other room so we could have seen the pink glow overflow, but here's pink. Go around the corner here. This is really doing wonders for the white balance on this. I don't know, do you want to... Now you guys are like really far away from the camera. We can continue the interview from this distance, I guess. That's kind of weird, but I don't know if you have any last thoughts.
I think you did pan really quickly over a piece that's in there. That is the print surrounded by the almost floral-looking arrangements of dots.
Yeah.
Which seems to me, it fits within the show as a whole, but seems to be a very different construction of domestic space. In that you have a relatively straightforward depiction of a home or a house that is surrounded by these things that are obviously constructed by you or somebody.
Yeah, I think the way the two really, for me, the circles related to the flowers in front of the house, and so we have these flowers that are very just spear-like. But then as I started making the piece, I was thinking about wreaths that we hang on doors, and I like things that conflate meanings that are more than one thing, and the way we use wreaths to decorate, where they could be a symbol of like victory, but they're also a symbol of death. And yeah, so again, it was intuitive. It's not completely, I haven't thought out the whole process, but that's what was on my mind.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And, I don't want to. We don't have to push this anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like
It's really been a pleasure to be able to live with this whole installation so far for the month. It's been great.
Right, that's the best compliment I could get.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for putting on all the workshops. It's been pretty fantastic.
Oh no, thank you. It's been great for me too.
What's your website, the blog?
The blog is thedomesticprintmaker.com, and I also have my own website, kristennecessary.com.
Cool.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay.